My film is titled Banished, and Banished. The film is about the following. The film is about three communities in the United States in which white citizens expelled their black neighbors, and their neighbors left property, homes, and land. These incidents occurred between 1860 and 1920, and in fact, the three that I'm focusing on occurred in the early part of the 20th century, the early 1900s. But what I'm doing in the film is I'm looking at specifically two instances where African American descendants of the blacks expelled return to these communities and effectively ask or demand something of those communities, a demand that's in the form of a redress, a reparations, a reconciliation for what occurred. I came to this story I was solicited by the Center for Investigative Reporting, a great organization in Berkeley, California. Their website is muckraker.org, so you know exactly what they're about. They get in there and dig up the stuff that makes a difference. They actually approached me and said that there was this journalist, Elliot Jaspin of the Cox News Agency, who had essentially excavated a dozen of these accounts. And they wondered if I was interested in making a film about it. And I was. I was compelled by this history, but at the same time, I was somewhat an audience. I thought, who cares? Why should anybody care about a history, something that happened over 100 years ago? Why should it make a difference to us? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, look, there are lots of things going on in our country between black and white people, a lot of unresolved feelings and issues, racism, etc. And maybe this film might be a way to get at or explore prospects of redress or resolution for some aspects of our past history. So that was my focus. The film has three different episodes, and two of which involve African Americans who return to these communities. And that's a very powerful, risky, emotional enterprise. In Forsyth County, Georgia, an African American family returns to their family burial ground. It's on white-owned property. They clean it up. And almost that process of recovering their personal history compels them to go to the county courthouse to investigate what happened to their family land. And they discover that that land was effectively stolen. And they wonder what can be done about it. In the second story, two brothers from St. Louis, Missouri, discover that their family had been expelled from Pierce City, Missouri. And they're so incensed by this, so incensed by the fact that their family was not able to go back on holidays, on Memorial Day, on birthdays to the gravesite of their great-grandfather, that they go back to the town and they demand that the town disinter their great-grandfather's remains. So a very personal, emotional story. So that's really kind of the thrust of the film. In some measure, the half of the people who appear in my film willingly want to have their story told. And the other half, and that half is the African Americans. The other half are the whites who live in these towns that are virtually all white today. So the impact of the banishment and ethnic cleansing in our country results in the absence of African Americans in these communities. The white residents, therefore, are more reluctant. They are at the same time, they offer themselves, but they are conflicted. And so what occurs in my film, and in the clip that I presented, I go to a senior citizens home at lunchtime and ask the people who are closest to having either been there or having a living memory of what happened. And what's compelling and what's engaging to me in this sequence is they're all willing to talk to me, but what we see is a collision of values and viewpoints, language of the past. They use the word colored. There's a woman who, as she's starting to try to describe something she knows, she is confounded by finding the right word. She's and it's pretty evident.
What word does she come up with?
She comes up with the word colored, but I think audiences who see this clip will realize that what she's struggling with is that she wants to use the word nigger, but across from her is an African American man, making it problematic. So in that way, there's this scene captures one of the things I was trying to deal with in the film, which is the impact or the collision of the past to the present. Here's the thing. I think that black and white Americans and America itself has made great progress in terms of racial equality, race relations, and yet there's still divisions, there's still tensions. And one of the things that I've been exploring in many of my films is the conversation, is the dance, the awkward dance between black and white around this very divisive, complicated topic or theme of race. So I wanted to do a film that furthered the conversation, that hopefully helped us understand why black and white have a difficult time communicating with each other, and hopefully through that, again, I call it a very awkward dance. It's sort of like two adolescents dancing with each other for the first time. They sort of want to do it, but they don't know how close they can get to each other. That's what I was really looking after. So throughout my film, while there are personal narratives going on, it's accented with conversations with attorneys or law professors, psychologists, historians, who help us understand why this is a difficult conversation, but more importantly, to help us understand mechanisms or methods by which we might reconcile the past. I think that until we can reconcile our history, we're always going to be impacted by it, and perhaps not fully achieve the progress we think we've achieved thus far today. So I'm going to operate a bit of crass publicity because of this whole notion of awkwardness. And that is that I've been offering this as a bit of promotional material, and what invariably occurs is that when you see a Klan hood, we are terrified and horrified by this symbol. And in a lot of ways that is going on in my film. There's something very awkward and difficult, and I'm willing to confront us by occasionally putting on this hood, which is a hideous symbol. My film is screening here at the Sundance Film Festival. I hope people will come, because I think I think the big issue with Americans is that we generally don't like to go see films about race. It is the one thing that makes us uncomfortable, and we just as soon examine other things. So I think all the more reason why we must experience this, because we must overcome our discomfort.